Hello, Dr. Doug Lucas here, retired orthopedic surgeon, now focusing my practice on longevity and bone health. Have you been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia and you have been looking for the comprehensive solution to your bone health problem? Well, there are a lot of opinions out there, but what I'm going to review today is a plan called the Fully Optimized Osteoporosis Therapy Plan, or the FOOT plan, which comes out of the naturopathic community. So this is a plan that people have asked me about on a regular basis, so I want to put this out there in a video so that I can review this and help people to decide if this is the right move for them. So if you're looking for a comprehensive plan, stick around because we're going to go through this one in detail. All right, so as I mentioned, the Fully Optimized Osteoporosis Therapy, or FOOT plan, is a plan that comes out of the naturopathic community. Now, the author of the article that I read is Mark Swanson, who is a naturopath in Washington State. Now, this article goes into detail of a lot of different things of the FOOT plan, a lot of different details of the FOOT plan, but I want to hit some of the highlights to help answer the question of, is this a good idea or not? Okay, so first off, I want to applaud Dr. Swanson for his approach, which is comprehensive in nature. I love the fact that he talks about how to slow down bone loss. I love the fact that he talks about everything from the beginning to the end of lifestyle and how we want to help to build bone and to improve osteoblast function. So I think that's wonderful. It's in the details where I disagree with some of the things that he says, and we'll get into those. So in the article, he talks about really a brief summary of diet and then a little bit about exercise, and then he gets into a supplement list. And so I want to talk about the first part of it in this initial section of this video. So he talks about, from a dietary perspective, this diet called the return to balance diet. Now, I had to do a little digging to find the source of where this came from. This is not a popular diet that I was aware of prior to this. And when I looked up the authors, I found some articles that the same authors had written that really talked about a pH forward diet, meaning that a diet that is really driven around pH. Now, if you have looked at any of my videos around pH, I have more videos coming on this topic because I think this is something that deserves a lot of attention because the data around this can really be taken out of context. So this diet plan talks about eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, and I think that's totally wonderful. But then they get into the science, or pseudoscience as I should call it, around keeping your blood pH alkaline and monitoring your urine pH or your urine acid level to verify that you're doing this successfully. And then they kind of dig into, but don't really talk a lot about, the fact that eating animal protein and making your urine appear more acidic. Now, a couple of things. One, I'm not going to go into full detail here. I have an entire video on this. But two, all of the science behind this is flawed. If you're looking at your urine pH, you are looking at a byproduct of your body's attempt, and successful attempt for the most part, to keep your blood pH at a neutral or slightly alkaline, or base, depending on what you want to call it, a slightly alkaline level. But this is not necessarily a bad thing if your urine is acidic. It's just what your kidneys are doing to buffer your pH. So by saying that you need to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, I think that's wonderful. But by subtly implying that you should not eat any animal protein, or if you look at this diet plan, really any protein, I think you're going to be protein deficient. And this is where I think there's a huge issue, where a lot of plant-based vegan authors will use this pH idea to push the plant forward way of eating, which to some extent is fine. I think we should eat plants and there's benefits to fruits, but if you avoid all of your protein sources, then you will be protein deficient. And we know that this is going to lead to sarcopenia, or loss of muscle mass, and it's going to ultimately lead to poor bone health. So I think that we can take some of this to say, yes, fruit, vegetable, it's a great thing to add to your diet. If you want to do that to alkalize your blood, that's your preference, but don't avoid good protein sources to help to alkalize your blood, because you are going to be shooting yourself in the foot. And then from an exercise perspective, they simply talk about doing both aerobic and weight-bearing exercise. They mention that it's a mandatory component of any part of a wellness program or an osteoporosis program. So a little bit vague. We have a lot of videos, and we have more in the works on different ways that you can improve bone health through exercise, and a lot of resources for that. So let's just say that there's probably not sufficient discussion of that in this program, but that they do say that exercise is important, which it is. All right, sorry to interrupt this video, but if you are enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and sign up for notifications for future content. If you know anybody that would benefit from this video, please share it with them so we can continue to spread our message to anybody looking to improve their bone health. And lastly, if you want to learn more about how you can improve your own bone health, click on the link in the description for our Masterclass. This is where we will go through some of the things that we do, some of the things that you can do on your own to help improve your bone health. All right, in the last part of the foot plan, Dr. Swanson goes through all of the supplements that he recommends to be in this program, and I'm going to go through each one of these one by one. Now, the first one is strontium. I just did a video on strontium, so if you haven't seen that, check it out. I talk about the relatively recent research that shows that strontium can really have some benefit, but you have to be careful. You have to not take it with calcium, and you really have to understand the science behind it and whether or not you think it's a good idea for you based on a number of factors, which I talk about in that video. The second supplement that they recommend is potassium. Now, this is a supplement that we generally don't include in our supplement stack with patients because I feel like you really can probably get enough of this through diet if you are consuming a vegetable-forward diet that has enough dark leafy greens in it. I think that potassium probably we don't need to add, although certainly it could be added either in multi or in a individual supplement as well. But again, for us, it generally doesn't make the top 10 list. Calcium in this plan is somewhere around 300 to 450 milligrams per day. I think that that amount is going to totally depend on whether or not it's appropriate if you are consuming high levels of calcium or not. Some of our patients don't need any calcium, and some need quite a lot of calcium. They also talk about different types of calcium. They recommend calcium citrate, and calcium citrate is relatively well absorbed. It's not my favorite form because there are other forms that have better evidence to support that they are going to support the idea of bone development better, particularly calcium hydroxyapatite, MCHC is how that's listed. And you can find that in a number of different supplements. All right, now magnesium, they talk about in here too. They give a dose of 200 to 300 milligrams. I think magnesium is an important one to measure. And so they do talk about measuring other vitamins in here, but I think magnesium is important to measure because magnesium you can take too much of, although hard to do if you're taking it through pill form. And it's very common that you are deficient in magnesium, and so it's a little bit hard to know. With the recommendation here of 200 milligrams per day, most of my patients that we're measuring, that wouldn't be enough. But again, you want to measure it to know how to take it, how much to take, how many times to take it, and there are a lot of different forms that can serve different purposes, and I think we'll have an entire video on that topic. All right, so vitamin D3. They talk about D3 at around 2,000 IU a day. I think this is a reasonable dose for a lot of people, but again, this is something that I really think should be measured because 2,000 IU for some people would be way too low, and for some people potentially could be too high, although I've never seen anybody go super therapeutic with 2,000 IU a day. I think it's also important then to pair this with the next one that they talk about, which is vitamin K. So vitamin K, I think, is a really interesting vitamin that we're going to continue to hear more and more about. There are two forms of vitamin K that you can readily see in different supplements, vitamin K1 and vitamin K2. K1 is the form that we get through plants. Your body has to convert this into K2 to use it, and some people do that better than others. So I don't recommend K1 for people because, again, we don't know if you're actually converting it to use it. K2, on the other hand, has also two forms. One is called MK4 and one is called MK7. You want to look and make sure you know which one you're getting in supplement form because the MK4 is going to be very short acting. It's going to have to be taken multiple times throughout the day, whereas MK7 potentially could be taken twice a day or even once a day, depending on how you metabolize it. And the dose that they recommend in here at under 100 micrograms, I think this is kind of older information, older data, and there are some newer supplements out there with 200 to 300 micrograms, which is what I'm recommending for my patients. All right, now the next one is omega-3s. There is an abundance of literature to support the idea that we need a good balance of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids in our diet and in our body. And testing omega-3s in the blood and in the red blood cells is a good way to figure this out. So again, this is something that we test. I like omega-3 supplementation. I think it's really hard to get through diet. They talk about plant sources versus animal sources and getting both. I really think that you can just focus on the EPA and DHA in animal sources, particularly fish oil, and that's probably going to get you what you need. All right, the next one they mentioned is a multivitamin. So we will use a multivitamin for some of our patients and not for others. It really depends on what else is in their supplement stack and what their dietary needs are. Multivitamins can be nice because they can fill in some gaps. They can help to provide some things that you're missing, but generally they're going to have very low doses, so it's hard to get therapeutic on a number of different things. They can also contain some things that genetically some people don't tolerate, and genetically some people need other forms. So multivitamin is kind of a hard one for me to recommend for people that aren't in our program, that haven't gone through testing, and that we don't know their genetics. And then the last one they recommend in here is melatonin, and they don't talk about sleep necessarily in this program, although sleep is obviously very important if you've listened to any of our topics, oversleep and sleep hygiene. But I think they're mentioning melatonin in here because there is evidence to say that melatonin does have an impact on osteoblasts, and it can be a part of a comprehensive program to help build bone. So melatonin, I agree with, 3 to 6 milligrams. It's hard to know what the right dose is, and I think it's going to depend on how you metabolize it. And again, this is genetically driven, so something that can be tested so you can know, do you need more of a physiologic dose, which is more around the 200 to 300 micrograms, or do you need 3 to 6 milligrams like they're recommending, or some people are even taking 20 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams, these supra physiologic doses that there's just not a lot of research on. So again, this is something that we talk about, we play with. Most people are going to end up on some form and amount of melatonin, but it's going to be very customized for our patients. And the last thing they have in this list is hormone replacement. Now, taking estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone is not FDA approved for osteoporosis, so we have to be careful how we say this. But if you look at the literature and if you look at the physiology, it's very clear that estrogen has an impact on osteoclasts. Testosterone and progesterone have an impact on osteoblasts. So there is going to be an impact of hormone replacement on bone health. And if you are a candidate for hormone replacement and you've had the discussion of risk benefit around hormone replacement, then it's reasonable to consider this as part of a comprehensive plan, knowing that the hormones are going to have an impact on many things, not just on your bones. So in conclusion, is the foot plan a good plan for osteoporosis? I think it's a great start. It's better than what you're going to get out of the conventional medical system. It has a nice discussion of supplements. It gives dosing that are probably safe for most people. My concern here is that if this is the only thing you do, you're missing a number of really important things. So number one, you're missing, why are you losing bone? And this is something we talk about a lot with our 4R method, which is we want to recognize why you're losing bone. So it's one thing to treat it, it's one thing to hope that you stop losing bone, and some of these things do treat it, but we haven't really uncovered why you're losing bone. And that leads me to my next concern, which is there's really no discussion about gut health in here. And so I know naturopaths are generally going to be really comprehensive in gut health, and maybe this is just something that they're doing anyway. But understanding if you are absorbing your nutrients, how your gut is working, do you need any kind of enzyme or other supplementation or work on your microbiome, all of those things matter. So I would like to see some discussion of gut health when it comes to a comprehensive program for bone health. From a dietary perspective, I think that the amount of protein that you're going to get on the recommended diet coming out of here is going to be woefully deficient. I think that you're going to end up convincing yourself that you shouldn't eat animal protein, and you're going to be very protein deficient, which is going to have a negative impact on your bones and on your muscles. Speaking of muscles, I think they need to do a better job of saying what kind of exercise. I understand this is very hard to do in a publication, and this is something that we spend a lot of time talking about amongst the team on how to actually make good recommendations for people through a telehealth platform, because this is how we see our patients, and sometimes we do end up making the recommendation that they use somebody locally that they can talk to, and then somebody that can watch them work out. But there are a lot of things that you can make general recommendations for once you understand somebody's starting point. And then lastly, the supplement stack. I think it's a good stack. I think, again, these are good starting points for a lot of people. I just like to measure. I think if you're not measuring, you're really throwing darts in the dark. And I think that you should understand some of these things that can easily be measured through blood. Some of them are more difficult to measure, but could also be measured through potentially urine or stool samples. But definitely a blood test will get you a lot of these numbers and it'll help to steer the dosing on a lot of these things. So I think it's a reasonable start. I think there's more that could be done. As long as you're monitoring progress in your bone health journey and you're seeing improvement, then maybe this is all you need. If you aren't, then maybe you need more. All right, you made it to the end of the video. So thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. The more people that subscribe, the more the algorithm will push out this information to other people with questions on bone health. So please do them a favor and subscribe to this channel. If you want to learn more about how we manage bone health, or you want to learn some other tips or tricks in one place, click on the link in the description below, sign up for our free masterclass. And lastly, I want to hear from you. I would love to hear what questions you have about this topic or any other topics on bone health. Leave your comments and questions in the comment section. We answer these on a daily basis. If you have any recommendations for topics, you can leave those in the comment section as well. We are compiling those and we're getting data and information together as quickly as we can to share with you on this channel. Thanks again.